In this lesson, we're going to look at how we solve quadratic equations. There are a number of different methods to solving quadratic equations. You can use a graph, you can use the quadratic formula, you can also factorize certain quadratic equations to solve them. Today we're going to look at factorizing to solve. It's important that you haven't already you watched the video previously made on factorizing quadratic expressions, because what we're doing in that video is almost identical to what we're doing today, just with one added step today. In that video we looked at expressions. These are indeed equations because, as we can see, they are equal to something, so therefore that means we can find an answer for x. And because they're quadratics, well, in these two cases anyway, not in all quadratics, we're going to have two answers for x. Okay, so when we look at factorizing something like this, we're going to factorize the left hand side. So the 0, x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. The 0 is kind of irrelevant at the minute. When we factorize a quadratic, same as when we factorize a quadratic expression, we're working in reverse and we're putting brackets back in to the equation. Okay, so if we also, and again it's important to watch the previous videos, consider when we looked at expanding two brackets, we used a method called FOIL. So multiplying what's in the brackets, the first two terms, first, outer, inner and last, is what FOIL stands for. F stands for multiplying the first two terms to get this x squared here. Well, the only way we can get an x squared is if we multiply x and x. So the first term in each bracket in this case has to be x to get x squared. And again, just recapping on the video lesson on factorizing quadratic expressions, the coefficient of x is what's known as the sum, and the number that's shown here is what's known as the product. So we need two numbers that add to give us 5 and that multiply together to give us 6. So if I look at the numbers that multiply together to give me 6, I have 1 and 6 and 2 and 3, and because everything's positive here, we don't have to worry about signs at the minute. Okay, so if I consider 1 and 6, yes, they multiply together to give me 6, but they do not add together to give me 5. So these two numbers as a pair are out. So my answer for this, or my second number in each bracket, must be 2 and 3. And again, when everything's positive like this, it doesn't matter if I was to put 2 here and 3 here, or 3 here and 2 here. Again, because everything's positive, both terms are also plus inside the brackets. Okay, now that is the equation factorized. This now allows us to solve, because this whole left hand side is equal to 0. I can take each bracket and make it individually equal to 0. So I'm going to make x plus 2 equal to 0 and x plus 3 equal to 0. And this is going to give us our two answers for x. Okay, so if x plus 2 equals 0, then x must therefore be equal to minus 2, because minus 2 plus 2 would equal 0. And if x is 3, or x plus 3 equals 0 over here, then x therefore must be equal to minus 3. So my two answers for x are minus 2 or minus 3. Okay, so that's how we solve these. Basically, it's an added step from when we were looking at quadratic expressions. We factorize and then we make each bracket equal to 0. So that takes me on to my next example, where the right hand side is not equal to 0. In fact, it's equal to 20 in this case. So what we have to do is bring everything to the left hand side. We want it equal to 0. So if I want this 20 over here, bearing in mind it's a positive 20, it's going to be minus 20 when we move it across. So what I end up with is x squared plus x, which is already on the left hand side, minus 20 equals 0. So all I've done as an added step here is I brought everything to the left hand side and left 0 on the right. Now I can factorize. Okay, now just be careful, because I have a plus x and a minus 20. So again, just consider plus x its own means this the sum is 1, because that's a 1x. Okay, so that's the sum, and this is the product, which is minus 20. Okay, again, we're putting this into two brackets. The only way I can get an x squared, again considering FOIL, if I was working in reverse, is if both the first terms were x and x. Okay, So the product being minus 20, this is where we just need to be careful of the signs. I could have a positive 1 times a minus 20, or a minus 1 times a positive 20. Okay, remember this is product. And I have to consider, would these add to give me plus 1? Neither of them will, so these two are out. I could have a positive 2 and a minus 10, or a minus 2 and a positive 10. Again, neither of them 2 plus minus 10, because minus 8, that doesn't work, and that will give me positive 8, so they don't work. I could have positive 4 and minus 5, or minus 4 and positive 5. So it's a case of deciding which of these two, again, the signs are important here, is going to add to give me a plus 1. So if I was to look at this, minus 4 plus 5, minus 4 plus 5 will give me a positive 1. So it must be this combination here. So x minus 4, x plus 5. And remember, this is equal to 0, so I'm just going to write it down here to give myself a wee bit more space, where I can include my 0 on the right hand side of the equals. And now again, I just make each bracket individually equal to 0. So x minus 4 equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0. So if x minus 4 equals 0, x must be 4, because 4 take away 4 would give me 0. If x plus 5 equals 0, x must be equal to minus 5, because minus 5 plus 5 would give me 0. So in this case, my answers are 4 or minus 5. I'll put some questions to practice, and anything you're unsure about, just ask, and I will do another video where we look at harder examples of this.